Some stories aren't just about surviving. They're about what someone chooses to do with the pain they were handed. Today's guest, Kirsten Vanderjagt, grew up surrounded by homelessness, addiction, domestic violence, and constant instability. She attended over a dozen schools, experienced profound loss, and watched the same trauma impact her family in very different ways. While those experiences shaped her brother's lives in devastating ways, Kirsten's path led her toward purpose and advocacy. Instead of turning away from the systems that failed her family, she chose to confront them. She is the founder of Katie's House Foundation and the creator of a Shelter Registry designed to bring transparency, safety, and accountability to shelters and recovery housing. Because when lives are at risk, details matter. Today's conversation is raw, honest, and deeply human. It's about childhood trauma, family history, why people from the same home can turn out so differently, and how darkness can become a catalyst for change. Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
I am very well. How are you doing, Julie?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk with you today. We chatted yesterday briefly, and I felt like we could have talked all day. But we have some similarities, some things in common, but really the reason that I wanted to have you as a guest is because your story is so profound in the fact that you have really been through a lot as a young child, an adult as well, with family stuff. And then you've gone on to do incredible things to change the lives of so many people. And so I really want our listeners to be able to be inspired by you and also recognize, wow, we are not who we came from, where we came from, and all of that. So I know that you're a real estate agent, you're an investor, you do a ton of things. You educate kids and people on finances. And you started nonprofits. But one of the things that I would love to talk about first is your childhood and going back to where it all started. Because I think that if people understand your childhood, they'll understand the motivation of what propelled you to start these nonprofits.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and that's very nice of you to say. And yes, I'm happy to be here and an open book as much as I can be.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, when I was reading your bio on your nonprofit, Katie's House Foundation, I was blown away. And I had read it a couple years ago when I was looking to do some type of supportive housing myself. And I reread it the other night and I was like, oh my God, it gave me goosebumps because I was like, wow, I mean, this is really, really amazing stuff. So can you take us back to what your childhood was like, before 10 years old, what your family dynamic was like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll preface it by saying that I normally don't go down this road and do podcasts right now just because of how busy things are. And so this is all very fresh to
Yeah.
talk about this. People can go to katiesHouseFoundation.org. And that's Katie is with an S, housefoundation.org, and they can read my bio. And I actually don't get too much into this chapter. I think it's interesting that you're actually talking about like the 0 to 10 chapter, because when I teach in the financial literacy, I always talk about these 10-year chapters. And that one for me, I mean, when I think back, it was from 0 to 5, we lived in Hawaii. My dad was in the Army and we were stationed at Pearl Harbor. So even though I'm a native from San Diego, we weren't there long. And then from what I can recall, it was fine. It was meaning like fun. It was military-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I have pictures. Actually, just recently, I was given some pictures a couple years ago, 5 years ago. I hadn't seen because I don't have a lot of those. When you come from a background of moving quite frequently, those kinds of things get lost or tucked away for 45 years.
Right.
So when I think about that, I mean, from 5 to 10, we actually came back to California. And, my parents were very young when they got married. And that's relevant because my mom wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That was her goal. And my father was adopted. And so you can see that in my bio.
Mhm.
And when they came back and they were, let's call it 24, to be around their high school friends who maybe hadn't picked out their careers and maybe didn't have children, or if they did, that's such an interesting time going from, let's call it 18 to 25,
Right.
and outgrowing or not outgrowing some people, actually
Mhm.
people, and places and triggers. And so, um, unfortunately, they did get back into drugs and alcohol, and they got divorced. And that was very difficult because that really kicked off a lot of turmoil for my two brothers and I.
Mhm.
And, I don't have a lot of memories from that point. Every once in a while, I'll think of something and I'll be like, oh,
Mhm.
that's a happy memory
Yeah.
versus none at all.
Yeah.
So when I think of 0 to 10, I actually just think of the recent pictures that I was given.
Yeah, yeah. So when you guys moved back to California, did you have family support around?
Yeah, so we were really lucky in the way that my dad's parents, highly educated and wealthy, and then my mom's parents, and they lived in San Diego, and then my mom's parents also lived in San Diego. And so when the divorce took place, the kids stayed with my mom, which I think is happens in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And because she was a stay-at-home mom and didn't have the skill set or the grit to
Mhm.
figure out the finances, we were really lucky that my grandpa and grandma, they owned real estate in
Mhm.
San Diego. And so we would kind of move between their rentals.
Mm.
And that took place until the age of 12. And then, um, so I think from about 6 to 12. And then at age 12, I actually, you know, um, I don't tell this story. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but uh, Child Protective Services. I went to school one day
Mhm.
and basically I had said, why don't you guys send some people over to our house? Um, and they did. And
Mhm.
then we never went back to that house. They
Yeah.
ended up pulling my older brother out. He was in eighth grade. I was in seventh. And then our youngest brother was in kindergarten. And after that, it was, are we going to foster care or are we going to live with family? And
Mhm.
then also, what are the financial arrangements and also the psychological arrangements around a transition like that?
Right. Right. You know, I thank you for sharing that because I know that it's so hard to bring up and relive those experiences because they are so hard. Um, and I remember as a kid, I learned that well, we were chronically homeless up until about 4 years old, where my dad, he was a, I guess we'd call him a carpenter, and he worked seasonally or when he felt like it, and so we constantly, we were at a place and then out of a place, and we ended up staying at my grandparents who had moved out of their house, so kind of similar, like they had a place to live, so we stayed there, and then it was just. Do you remember feeling at that time? Um, like a sense of stress, or were you having to take care of your brothers, or any of like the
Oh, yeah.
parentification that tends to happen when parents have
Yeah,
substance use?
I absolutely, and I'm sorry to hear that you went through that. And maybe that's why both you and I are real estate investors, right? Because we know the power of home.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, when I was 11, 12, I was putting my little brother on my handlebars and going 2 miles the other way to take him to school, and then I had to
Hmm.
go, like, I'm pretty sure it's 4 miles back the other way, so, like, 2 miles back past my house, 2 miles to my school,
Yeah.
in middle school in the mornings, and, and then standing in the bread line, like on Wednesdays, we actually would go stand in the bread line
Hmm.
and get food that was, it wasn't the freshest, and you were lucky if what you got. And then we would go back home and stay in one of my grandparents' rentals. And normally the food would be gone within a day or two. So if we went
Hmm.
on Wednesday, it's like by Saturday it's gone, Sunday, and you still kind of have to just go. And so that is why I have my foundations and
Hmm.
feel like, it's really important for kids. One of my nonprofits, which has gotten rolled into my other one, so the Normalized Money Project
Hmm.
is a project, but it's also a foundation in the way that we teach kids, teenagers ages really 14 through 19.
Mhm.
And they're super hungry for it. It's most populous at like age 15. But the reason I bring this up is because I think we tend to think back to being 12, 13, 14, 15, and it just really depends on your maturity level. But then when I look forward and we've done these kinds of classes, the kids at age 15, they know so much, right? At 10,
Mhm.
11, 12, I mean, really even 8 and 9. So when I think back to that, I feel like it just had to be done. It had to be done. Therefore,
Mhm.
I was like, my little brother had to go to school. I
Yep.
didn't have a choice. My older brother, um, he was off into skateboarding and all kinds of good things that eighth graders do.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way that it went. I think when you're a woman or a young girl, kind of you take on that role.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and when you moved into your aunt's home, and your brothers went somewhere else, did you guys maintain contact? Were you still seeing your parents for visitation, things like that?
So that's a two-part question, right? And with regard to my brothers, they went and lived at that point with my grandmother out in the desert, Brago Springs, and I
Mm.
went and lived in Poway, California. And yes, we had contact because my aunt was so strict. And if she listens to this, I appreciate it in hindsight.
Yeah.
Um, but it was very difficult. So she would actually send me to live with my grandma like pretty frequently. For maybe a week or a weekend.
Mhm.
And so for me, change is just totally something that I've always had in my life. I've gone to, I think, a dozen schools. I
Yeah.
actually just stopped counting. I went to 4 schools in sixth grade alone.
Wow.
And so it's like, yes, I stayed in contact with them. Also, I have a cousin, lucky enough that, he was 3 years younger than me and he lived with my aunt. So he was an only child. And the four of us, so me being the girl and then my brothers and the cousin kind of in the middle, um, yeah, we all kind of knew what was going on.
Mhm.
So when you're that age, you try and hang out, I think.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, now I am estranged with my older brother and my younger brother. We talk, but
Mhm.
kind of you have to. I'm pretty nitty gritty when it comes to life as far as at this point as an adult. You
Yeah.
have to focus on what moves you forward. And so I'm happy to talk with anybody and everybody
Mhm.
to a point, right? Because you
Right.
can't keep singing the same song and doing the same thing year after year, month after month. It's just
Yeah. Yes.
sometimes it doesn't make sense. The other part of that was my parents. You asked if I was in touch with my parents. My mother, not so much. She was very upset with me for bringing in child protective services, but I thought that
Mhm.
it had to be done because of the nature of the situation.
Yeah.
And then for someone who always wants to be a stay-at-home mom and then to lose their children, she was
Yeah.
very angry.
Yeah.
And I think spitting venom at your teenager is not a great way to go about healing a relationship.
Mhm.
But people have, the coping mechanisms maybe that they have or the lack thereof based on their education or like their resources. And so,
Right.
um, with regard to my father, he kind of popped in and out, and I love them and I would never want to speak badly about them. That's why
Mhm.
I do have foundations and why I
Yeah.
do financial everything because we need money, not for the point that like, oh, love money. It's just how do we help anybody if we can't get them what they need?
Right. Right. So you just said a little bit ago, there's a point, right? You're willing to talk to anyone, willing to help people, but there is a point. And you and I briefly were chatting yesterday, and I have a father who's a alcoholic, terrible alcoholic, and he does drugs as well. And recently was in the hospital and test positive for meth and cocaine, and he doesn't have a problem though, doesn't have a problem, but according to him. And I'm estranged from him now, but it's been on and off through the years because I feel like you try, you try, you try, right? You're the stable one in the family and you try to help all you can, and then it's never enough. They don't change. How were you able to get to that point with your parents where I mean, or were you? Like, did you get to a point where you're like, I'm done. I can't help you anymore. You're not helping yourself? Or did you
Yes.
continue to help to the
Um,
end?
I live that reality as far as I can't help you.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, till my mom passed away, and so she was homeless, chronically homeless as well, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, having like this time in life where really it's through your high school years, right? Like you better figure it out. I hate to tell you, but right now
Hmm.
is the time because after this, if you think you're going to go it alone, it's going to be hard. It's hard.
Hmm.
But anyways, so she was homeless and she was hit by a car in San Diego and so she passed away. And so in life, we never really came to terms. I mean, I saw her a few times. She had asked to live with me um, shortly before she passed, and I
Hmm.
was not agreeable to that, even though I had my own place and I think I was 21 at the time. And subsequently, after she passed away, I had a really interesting experience with a medium, actually.
Hmm.
And it completely changed it was like watching the movie, like being on Ghost, like the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg. But
Yeah.
this went on for 45 minutes and I didn't even hardly get to speak. I sat down in this little rock shop in El Cajon, San Diego,
Hmm.
and this woman named Michelle Fletcher, which you can catch her on the radio now. But I mean, she completely blew my mind. And I went home and I just decided from that point, like, I've got to forgive.
Wow.
And then something actually like that happened with regard to my father. He was still alive, but I had been going to see, sometimes you want to talk to people and it's
Hmm.
okay
Yeah.
to, at that point, go to a neutral person, I think.
Right.
I don't believe in spending a ton of money on or time on what might be unnecessary, but if it is necessary to get a neutral voice, um, I actually did the same thing with my father while he was alive in the way that, if something stirred up, I would go. And then one day I was like, you know what? This is me holding on to it. I've just got to let it
Hmm.
go because it's not, I just have
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah.
It holds you
Wow.
hostage if you don't.
Yeah. Wow. And I love that. And I don't know that most people know how to do that, or uh, I know they
That's
can
what
do
the
it.
psychologist said.
Yeah.
She's like, wait, what do you mean you're not coming back? And I'm like, no, I just decided with my father. And this
Yeah.
was actually before I don't remember if it had anything to do with my mom, probably not, but
Hmm.
or even the psychic person. But
Hmm.
it just I think you get to a point, hopefully, personally, where you
Hmm.
understand that like it's hurt, right? It
Hmm.
could be anger, it could be hurt, it could be lack of being able to do something, but literally, what can you do other than just honestly in your heart say, you know what? It's okay. I'm
Hmm.
everything yesterday, 5 minutes ago, it's done. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy and I'm going to move on. Now, granted, if they pop back in and you let them pop back in,
Hmm.
I think you know who people are and either
Hmm.
you are okay with them in your
Hmm.
area or you
Yeah.
have to acknowledge I cannot take the call. I
Yeah.
simply cannot right now.
It's I love that you're sharing this, and I am so sorry about the way that your mom passed, and I'm sure there was that, of course, grief around it and the questions and what if I let her live with me? What if all of that? But it's so profound that you just made a decision to release it, to let that all go. I mean, gosh, if everyone could do that, I think this world would be a much better place because so many of us do carry anger and frustration and hurt. And I think for myself, when I think about my own father, he called recently and I answered, and it had been a few months, and I was on the phone with him for 20 minutes, and I found myself really annoyed when I got off the phone with him, like kind of in a bad mood after talking to him. And it was just the same kind of his reasoning about things. And just I just am like, wow, I shouldn't have taken that call, because I do get to the point when I don't talk to him for a while where I'm like, okay, like I'm good. Like this is great. But I find myself going back to be angry about things he did to my mom, or I found out that he had molested a young girl years ago, his girlfriend's daughter. And so once I found that out years later, I just stopped talking to him. And so I, I tend to hold the anger for him, for other people, and things that he has done. And now it's just to the point where I'm just like, I just I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And it feels good to be done because then I don't, but then when I talk to him, he annoys, it's terrible to say, but he annoys me. Um, so I think I'm there. I'm there. And when he does pass, there will be a lot of peace, unfortunately. And I know I sound like a horrible person when I say that, but
No, you don't sound like a
no.
horrible person. I think that it is important to talk about Katie's House Foundation and the way that by having this type of a foundation and even shelterregistry.com.
Mhm.
So I would like people, please, if you can, to go to our YouTube channels and go to our, it doesn't cost anything, but we'll get into that. But what I really want to highlight in this particular area is that having seen people in drug and alcohol recovery and establish what we would call a boutique house, like a boutique shelter. That's how our single families were set up.
Mhm.
We have divested, and now we're going to do more, but we're going to do them only in Arizona. And so that will be starting actually probably this year. We're going to start dropping manufactured homes and other types of stuff. But the point is
That's
this:
great.
going to the drug and alcohol courts and going to the foster care systems and letting people that are at-risk populations come and live in your house and have a bed, and then also drug testing them when they come in, and then just doing drug tests regularly. And that is what I think allowed me in life to deal with my brothers, because I'm not, I don't have my parents
Mhm.
anymore
Mhm.
to have that type of, should I take the call? Should I not take the call?
Yeah.
And how am I going to feel after that? But certainly if I take a call from somebody, and it doesn't even have to be just them. It could be somebody who's into right now in their life. Maybe they're addicted to drugs and alcohol, or maybe they're homeless and they reach out to the foundation or to my cell phone. And of course, it's going to change your mood, and you have to give yourself grace for that, because it's like they're suffering and you cannot help them. And so I think the 12 steps is really helpful for everybody, regardless if you're addicted or if you need
Mhm.
therapy or you don't want to seek therapy. But if you actually work through or even read about the 12 steps from Alcoholics Anonymous, it's really surrender and surrendering, like that is their life. And what
Well,
you really can't do anything. Now, I did want to say really super quick before maybe we change. I was thinking about this last night. So my younger brother right now is on a good trajectory.
good.
And what changed that after 35, 37 years, 38 years now that he's 38 actually. Gosh, I lost count. I think he's actually a little bit younger. But anyways, the point is this, is that after 30 some odd years, how does somebody change and get on a good trajectory and stay there? And what makes me feel like now I could take his call and the song is going to be different after
Mhm.
it always being the same?
Yeah.
Um, and the answer to that actually is like somebody along the way on his recovery journey finally got through to him. Like
Mm.
it wasn't me.
Mhm.
I don't even know who it was.
Mm.
But he kept
Wow.
trying. He
Yeah.
kept trying.
Yeah.
So it worked at some point because he
Well,
wanted to work it.
well, and I love to hear that. Let's actually back up because in your bio you talk about how both of your brothers ended up going into having similar lives as your parents, right? Getting involved in substances and all of that. And I wonder if you guys had very similar experiences. What do you think was the difference between why you decided a different path versus the one that they took? Was it people in their
When
lives?
I was 12 years old and we moved out, um, I think the fork in the road is that my aunt required me to see a child psychologist, and he was pretty high up in the state of California, and I had to
Mm.
see him every Sunday no matter what.
Hmm.
I only lived with my aunt for 3 years, but he was an advocate.
Mhm.
And so I think that one, he was exceptionally smart, excuse
Mhm.
me. Um, but he was neutral. Well, actually, he wasn't neutral when I think back. He was on my side. So
Uh-huh.
I think having somebody who was like, no, this is the child, and, she's not 20 or
Mhm.
25 or 30. And so you can't come at her like she is,
Yeah.
right? So I think that was, I can't believe I'm getting emotional because I actually don't talk about this, but yeah, it's just you have people
Mhm.
who do that. They are the fork in the road.
Mm. So you had an advocate and someone telling you it wasn't your fault. You are the child, and you had someone listen to you, which is
Well,
profound.
he never said that to me. Um, he just let me talk.
Hmm.
From
Mhm.
like I just would go and just talk, and he wouldn't really say much, to be honest.
But he must
But
have made you feel.
if I needed something done in my life, he would pick up the phone and he would get it done. And so I
Yeah.
can remember that I had a teacher that was giving me a tough time,
Mhm.
and instead of people saying that it was not true, he just called the school and said, "She needs to be moved in her math class." And it was
Yeah.
just done, and
Yeah.
it was like I felt very validated, like, "Okay, I don't really have to explain myself. This is
Yeah.
real because I'm telling him that this is a problem." And
Mhm.
he's not really trying to undo it in the conversation.
Yeah.
He just picked up the phone after I left, and he did that many times for me, and maybe people call it pulling strings, but I'm pretty sure that my aunt could have done that too.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, parents are so busy working, and I'm one of them, right? I have 4 children, and I'm busy working too, and I do have the foundations, and they have their things, and but it is so crucial if we only have a few kids to look after, or maybe the neighborhood kids,
Mhm.
if they're saying something over and over, even once, even twice, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, stop. If they're complaining about an adult in particular,
Mhm.
or a housing situation or a food situation, stop and just
Yeah.
take 5 minutes.
Yeah. So and I think that's so important for everyone to, especially in our community, is to really listen. So many people just kind of, oh, it's not my problem, or I don't want to get involved. So I've heard that so many times. It's not, I don't want to get involved. I used to investigate child abuse and would go and talk to neighbors, and I would talk to them. I don't want to get involved. Like, I don't
Get
understand that.
involved.
I don't understand the mentality of that. But
Yeah.
so let's back up. So you started Katie's House Foundation because you have a best friend named Katie. Can you tell us about your
Mhm.
childhood experience at Katie's house?
Yeah. So when I was living, actually, I had lived in and out of this house because it was owned by my grandmother. But when I lived there under the care of my aunt as a teenager, 3 streets over was Katie. Now, Katie and I became friends when we were the first time that I lived in that particular house.
Hmm.
So taking it all the way back to age 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But since I had moved so many times, anyway, the point is that her parents, one was a police officer and the other one was a stay-at-home mom, and they had 6 kids. And I think that was really good to see the police officer aspect, and pretty no nonsense because they're from the state of New York.
Hmm.
And that was very different, because Katie's mother, actually her mother and my mother, they're both named Teresa.
Mm.
And so I couldn't name it Teresa's foundation because it's Katie's house, but it's
Yeah.
interesting that both of our moms have the same name.
Right.
Um, and it was just good to go over there because that's where the kids were welcome, but you were
Hmm.
not allowed to take advantage, and you were held accountable. I
Hmm.
mean, really, you were not going to get away with much if you have a police officer from New York ruling. I mean, even if he's working, you
Yeah.
know that the mom is gonna hold everyone accountable. And so
Hmm.
that was just so different because they had family dinners and she made the dinner, and there really wasn't, not that we could see, and even looking back, like drugs and alcohol, I mean, that was not a thing there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think having a glass of wine with your girlfriends when you go out to the restaurant is not the same as, that
Hmm.
drinking at home, especially on a constant, like maybe my mom did.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I think first seeing like a marriage and then seeing like, oh, this is what police officers, this is how they treat their kids.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not all police officers, but for me, it was
Yeah.
like pretty, like it seemed pretty strict to me. And I actually
Mhm.
was all about it. I mean, I was a, I mean, Katie would tell you, I had no one that was going to hold me accountable. So I kind of was the kid that was, Teresa would be like, don't be getting my daughter into things.
Yeah, yeah. So you felt safe there, and
Of
it was
course.
like the first time feeling a real relationship, a healthy marriage. Maybe was that the first marriage or modeled marriage you had seen?
I mean, that I can look back on, yes, but
Hmm.
I actually, because I was a varsity gymnast and I actually just was in gymnastics from a young age, I think that
Mm.
was also something that was different for me is if you can get your child into a sport,
Yeah.
something that they love, not that you love for them, but if you
Right.
can figure out what they love and you could even get them there. So from a young age during all of this, I actually was really lucky that I could go to the Boys and Girls Club and just do
Hmm.
gymnastics, and they didn't really charge us
Oh,
because of the situation.
yeah.
And I could get rides there. And the reason that I bring that up is because through those sports, I was able to see a lot of parents and how they would bring their kids to the gymnastics meet and what
Mm.
they dressed like and what kind of car they drove and what kind of jobs they had and how they talked to each other. And so when I think about um, marriages, I tend to think about gymnastics because you see a lot of families or like the dad or the mom bringing the
Hmm.
girl and
Yeah.
so that's what my mind goes to. What was really great about Katie's house was that the kids could always be there. And they had this great wraparound porch in the front.
Hmm.
And so everyone could hang out on the wraparound porch in the front. And, that there was all the boys, all the girls. So my older brother, Katie's older brother, we had another friend and her brother. And so there was
Mm.
like six of us, three girls, three boys within a few years. And then we had additional children. And so we don't really have that right now, even. I mean, it depends on where you live, but imagine now having, six, seven, eight, nine kids on your front patio, and that's a
Yeah.
staple. And the mom comes home and she's like, okay, you've got to pick up the soda cans. And
Yeah.
she doesn't ask you twice because if she asks twice, you don't get to come back tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And just having a safe place to go to and everyone would know that's where you're at. I, I love that. I love that. And I always tried that when my kids were younger. Our house was always the hangout. Kids were always welcome and it felt safe, I think, for everybody, and I've been told that since. So how if we can move on, how did Katie's house come about? Because I know that in your bio you share that your brother was staying at some type of a supportive housing that did not have a lot of rules or structure or leadership in place and did end up being stabbed. Is that what propelled you to actually start Katie's house, or was it
Yeah.
something else?
Yes, that was one thing that definitely was critical in that decision. So in 2021, I left my underwriting career at Union Bank Affluent Lending, portfolio lending. And excuse me, I sold a company that I had and I pretty much thought I was going to be doing COVID with the kids. And what
Hmm.
happened was in 2000 I mean, I started the foundation for financial literacy because I wanted to talk finance at night and help the teenagers for free.
Yeah.
And I tried to make it available to everyone. But when it came to Katie's house, my younger brother going through it's called Oxford houses, and some people
Hmm.
might be familiar with them. You're not allowed to have any medication whatsoever,
Hmm.
because that is easy. It's just like, sorry, you can't have anything, but that makes it really hard if you have, a health condition.
Yeah.
And so also it's really hard to find house managers who either live in the house or live outside that you
Hmm.
can pay them enough and then they can actually help the people and watch over them so that way there's no theft or like my brother getting stabbed while he was
Right.
asleep. And so um I just felt again like being an advocate.
Hmm.
I guess, now that we're talking about it and we brought up my therapist from when I was, 12, basically yeah, somebody has to do it better, and it's
Mhm.
still not better, right? So I've gone down this path now at katieshousefoundation.org or Katie's House Foundation, where I mean, we're a 501(c)(3), and we um put together two beds in a room, or yeah, two beds in a room. And we talked with, I mean, the mayor of Birmingham, the city attorneys, I mean, so many different people, other people that have houses, treatment centers, like levels of care, designing these types of houses. And, but yes, that is what did it, is because during the COVID period in 21, just for a year of seeing what was happening, and then in 22, and it was like, it's not that I think I can do better, but I think that every investor or anyone who understands how to have a single family house or a duplex, a triplex, I would not recommend doing apartments because that is quite an endeavor.
Mhm.
But certainly, if you can get your hands on a single family or a duplex or a triplex, and you want to monetize it, not because you're greedy about money, but because
Mhm.
you have no choice if you want it to last, yeah, it can be done, and it's
Mhm.
very time consuming. And so we actually do teach a 12-hour class completely free. We used to charge
Mhm.
thousands of dollars for it, but we just decided that the foundation just give it away for free. It's on our YouTube at Katie's House Foundation on YouTube. And you
Yep.
can watch. So we have a board member who is a retired, well, she's actually still working now. She went back, but she's been in Chicago as a police officer. And so she sits on the veterans board, the drug board, and some other boards for placing people in, right? It's
Mhm.
just there's the caseload is so high in the whole entire United States
Mhm.
that the social workers and the police officers cannot go check on all these people that they place, right? If we can get kids at age 18 when they move out to really do, that's why we have the Normalized Money Project. Inside of Katie's House Foundation now,
Mhm.
it's a requirement. If you live at one of the houses, you have to take the class. Before it was optional, but it's not anymore. Um, they have to know on the continuum of care if they're going up or down, because nobody else is going to hold them accountable. It's just not, they're just not. And so they have to learn to hold themselves accountable. They have to learn how to make money. Do you remember what you wanted when you were like 15 or 16? You like wanted a car, you wanted a boyfriend, a
Yeah.
girlfriend, like a
Yep.
significant other, your best friend. And so if you try and get back in that, that's what I think about for my little brother around that time, is like,
Mhm.
man, if my grandma could have just done 14, 15, and 16 different for my little
Mhm.
brother, his entire life would be different. But she didn't hold him accountable, because for one reason or another, she's actually a very soft disciplinary.
Yeah.
She does not like to discipline,
Mhm.
and that did not work out very well for either one of my brothers.
Yeah. So if okay, so Katie's House Foundation is different from traditional or other supportive housing programs in the sense that you have provided pretty much everything someone, an investor or someone with some type of real estate needs to know to make it as safe and as structured and all of that. I know you have like a good neighbor policy. There's a lot more rules that and structure that I think not only mitigates risk to the residents but also to the owners. I know you and I talked about this a couple years ago, and I had watched a couple of the trainings initially because I was looking at buying it, and I got scared. And I think it was just my own fear of I tend to go after or try to solve problems. And I think growing up where there was always some chaos or always waiting for the phone call to hear that someone passed away or, all of that. And I just thought, is that really what I want to get involved in? Because it does scare me. I tend to go headfirst into things, but I love how, and I want to go back to yours and watch it all on YouTube because it is something that's in my heart. I do want to do that. And I think you providing so much structure around it removes that fear, really. So I
Thank
think
you.
that so many investors can look at this because it is such a need in every city. There's not a city that could not benefit from extra supportive housing that isn't just booked all the time or lacks a lot of supervision. And so I love what you're doing with Katie's House. And I know that you also, you mentioned briefly about the Shelter Registry, but can you explain what you would love for people to do if they do have a property, maybe a furnished rental, something that they, Airbnb, Verbo, any of those.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So, a few things there. Number one, people can go to shelter-registry.com, or you can just Google Shelter Registry. And so, as a byproduct of Katie's House Foundation, we needed to build what we call the Airbnb of social services.
Hmm.
And so you can take, if you have a bed, it could be a hospital bed, it could be a sober living, it could be any kind of a bed for at risk populations of any kind. And it could be anywhere in the country. And you can go right now and you can register that location, and it's an anonymous location. You can pin it on the map, like a nearby park or hospital. That's what we recommend. So people just kind of have an idea of like the nearest hospital, for example.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Shelter Registry is intended to allow social services like the police and the social workers and anyone and everyone to go search for free. And it's going to take us millions of dollars, or just like a viral like campaign of real estate investors. So first we need people with beds to go register their locations.
Hmm.
The cost to the investor is $15 a month. And the goal is to keep those beds full, so that way the police officers know that, oh, there's a single family house in this neighborhood. Now,
Hmm.
that's why we have good neighbor policies. So I would definitely say to watch the 12 hours, take notes, do it in I would say like 3 days, 4 hour blocks. So we
Hmm.
have module 1 through 4,
Yeah.
etc. So that way you can just like get it all done. And then, yes, if you have a furnished place and you want to make more money than probably what your Airbnb is making, but then you do have some costs that are associated, right? So depending on what type of individuals you allow the police or the social workers, or like, you can literally just call the city administrator and say, I have this house and it's on the shelter registry. Can you
Hmm.
send an email out to all of your
Hmm.
social workers? And even you can call the police captain and they will be happy to meet with you. And they
Oh.
will even, they want to know and let their deputies know, because if
Yeah.
they, I mean, the point is that you register because it tells them what kind of people you allow in and how many beds you have. So each morning,
Okay.
you or maybe your property manager, a normal property manager, would just want to log in and update the bed count, because you might had someone that moved out yesterday,
Mm.
or you might be full. And that's the problem with shelters, is that the ones that everyone knows about, are just full. The hospital beds are
Right.
normally full. Everything's almost always full. And then you go and you set up one of these houses and you're like, well, how do they know about mine? Well,
Hmm.
the thing is that I told you yesterday is that, like, let's talk about a battered women situation where I go to you as my best friend and I say, I need you to take the call, right? Because
Hmm.
I don't want my husband to know that I'm leaving him. Um, and so basically, once somebody is ready, either they or the police or their friend can upload a
Hmm.
photo, so they can take a photo of themselves. Most people have free cell phones, or they can get one in their city. Um, and then they can just put their name and an email and a phone number. It doesn't have to be theirs. But basically, what that does is in real time, you as the operator of that facility,
Hmm.
you get an email with that information on the back end, and then you can pick up the phone and you can call and you can say, yeah, I still have the bed open. If you bring them right now, Mr. Police Officer or
Yeah.
friend,
Yeah.
then I'm reserving it. So that way, if somebody
Hmm.
walks in the next 15 minutes to my homeless shelter or calls me, I can say it's already reserved. Now, let's talk about
Yeah.
money though, because what's really important is that if you want to stay on the low risk side to do your first house,
Hmm.
I would highly recommend that you do people that are on Social Security and disability, because they don't need grant funding in the way that every year the grant is renewed by whoever the grantee is, or the grant, there's obviously a bunch of grantees, grantors, like
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in that world. Um, and so if you're going to start down this path, I would suggest, if they are on Social Security and disability, then at least you know that they can pay on the first of each month.
Hmm.
And then you can have, I would even also, at this point, I do recommend doing one bed per room, unless it's like two best friends who
Yeah.
want to be in the same room. Or maybe it's a mom and her kids or a dad and his kids, and it's like, okay, cool, for the same price or maybe a little bit more. Um, and you have to basically say, I mean, in my opinion, we didn't do anything social services wise, like
Mhm.
we tried to provide food, but it became very complicated. So we would have
Ah,
our house manager go get food just to
mhm.
keep it in once a week from the bank. So that was okay to get them started, but they have to, normally you want them to already have, this is why they need to have some financial means, because even if they get grant, like let's talk about United Way does the veterans. And so the United Way will pay for them for 1 year. And
Ooh,
there's two different kinds of leases. So when you have a true 501c3 and it's structured like ours, or if you wanted to partner with Katie's House and maybe we put it under the Katie's House Foundation umbrella, the insurance and things,
mhm,
um, you can actually in that we call it, really it's kind of like a shelter lease. Um, there's a paragraph by law, and basically it says if they use drugs or alcohol or they do anything that they're not supposed to, including non-payment, you
mhm.
can actually have the police come over and escort them out. There's no landlord tenant law because it's a registered shelter.
Oh,
Nobody needs to know
right,
about it.
right.
In fact, you don't want to tell everybody. Like, don't go on social media and be like, this is the address, send all your homeless
No,
people
no,
here.
no, you're right, right.
But basically, this is why we need this shelter registry to take off, because
Mm,
what we found at Katie's house was like some people would, even if they were elderly women who generally are like the lowest risk profile because they really just want like a place to cook their dinner and kind of
yeah,
watch TV, and they're not doing drugs and alcohol generally.
yeah,
But if somebody comes in and they are an alcoholic and you let them come in from, let's say, the hospital because they have nowhere to go, or a recovery center, they could become a nuisance because, in fact, we had this happen where one
mhm.
woman, you know, was older and she was holed up in her bedroom and she was drinking, drinking, drinking. And she had a fridge in there and she wouldn't come out for days. And the other women are like knocking, like, are you alive? Or, you know,
Mhm.
and she's got candles going and she'd come out at 2 o'clock in the morning and start making food while everyone's sleeping. And it's like, you have to be able to remove that person
Right, right.
rapidly to make sure everyone else stays copacetic. And so where do
Mm,
they go? Do you just kick them out and say like, say la vie? No, you
yeah,
need somewhere where you go look at the shelter registry and you say, I need a free shelter or a free program, which there is one in Orange County. It's on our registry. So if you're a
mhm,
woman and you need drug and alcohol recovery, it's completely free. The length of stay is indefinitely. So length of stay is
mm,
important. Are you going to let someone stay for 3 days or indefinitely?
yeah,
Um, and basically, do they have enough funds to pay for the person, or at 1 month, does the person have to start paying for themselves?
mhm,
And so there's this transition of, we have to know length of stay. We have to know what kind of population you're letting in that house, because men and women, you could have a lot of sexual misconduct there, even
right.
perceived like catcalling. And so we could go and we could talk about this forever, but the truth is that um, if we could all embrace this and let it take off, I mean, imagine the people can move up the continuum, because the people who do keep their jobs for, let's say, 12 months, now they can go and they've saved up some money, presumably, even if they were
Mhm,
self-paying for their room. Um, they can go to a normal apartment manager and say, I have my first month's deposit, I've gotten
mhm,
my credit. I even know what a credit score is. Like,
yeah,
I've held a job for a year. I have a car. I have my IDs. Sometimes we have to issue IDs at
right.
Katie's house because they don't have them. So I'm just saying, it's a huge thing, but this is what you have to understand, the three takeaways. Number one, go to the YouTube, Katie's House Foundation,
Yep,
and you can go to our katiesHouseFoundation.org to get to the proper YouTube.
yep,
Watch the 12 hours. Do not get scared, because people, I hate to say it, they probably will pass away in your property, but that could
mhm,
be a normal Airbnb anyways, which
mhm,
is why you get the insurance and why you have to make sure that they're paying, because you've got to monetize to keep the house afloat.
right.
So again, dealing with people that are on Social Security and disability, you're going to have a good time. I'm sorry, uh, it's going to be stable for you
Mhm,
to get the money. They want to pay,
mhm,
they want to stay. But if somebody's a nuisance, you need to have the
yeah,
right foundation lease so you can have them move out. And hopefully you go to Shelter Registry and you go, oh, cool, there's one right down in San Diego or in the same area that has a bed. I can reserve it for my tenant right now and say, get on the bus.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, it's ideal. in upstate New York where I invest most of my properties are there, and they are not landlord friendly. So someone who even goes and squats in your place, you're going to end up having to evict and spend months and months and thousands of dollars. So I like the idea of the whole shelter registry aspect where, if they can't follow the rules, then you can get them out. But in closing, I mean, because I'm definitely going to, all of your links are going to be put in the show notes so that people can go there. If they want to make a donation to Katie's House Foundation and go to the YouTube channel at Katie's House Foundation, register on shelter-registry.com. You're doing amazing things. But out of everything that you have done professionally or personally, what is the thing you're most proud of?
I mean, the combination of I mean, it's Katie's house for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of that is the Normalized Money Project, because it's life-changing for the teen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the teenagers so far are the ones that really get to take full advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that I'm proud of that because it changes them.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives them a sense of control where they don't feel control, because when you don't have
Yeah.
money, and that's like I remember going to a domestic violence shelter as a kid, and when you don't have money, it limits everything, and so you're giving these kids power and in their
Yeah.
control back, which I think is amazing. So how are people able to connect with that aspect, the Normalized Money Project? Can people Zoom in to take a course? How could someone in New York or somewhere else get in touch or be able to take the course? Is it possible?
We started recording them out, and finance can be so boring,
Yeah.
especially when we talk about it at a high school level. But the
Hmm.
truth is even when you're 40, 50, or 60, maybe you didn't and haven't had any education. And so
Yeah.
on the Katie's House Foundation YouTube, we did start recording out some of it. But the truth
Okay.
is that if you don't do the homework and the assessments and the quizzes that we give, some
Yeah.
of them do cost money. Um, this is a full-fledged. It started out as what could be like 3 college credits,
Hmm.
and now we kind of like dialed it back because we do it in person and we have a
Yeah.
limited amount of time. But the point is that, through the foundation YouTube, you can get some of it. And then we have plenty of people who want to buy the curriculum
Hmm.
and teach it. So
Yeah.
first we're going to have to teach them. And as you know, I'm a big teacher. Like, I do webinars for
Yeah.
for private money. If you're a private money broker or you want to be a broker, and you can be 18 and just completely learn about how to broker private money through some of the resources that I have. But you have to get the education and everything. So you're professional.
Yeah.
You want to start a business. So the point is like, yeah, the education piece of this, we cannot get it out there fast enough. But the thing is without the accountability of the homework and like talking about
Right.
just
To
the
be able to
homework,
apply it.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody applies it. They listen passively and they just go
Mhm.
on with their life.
Right. Right. Well, Kirsten, I am so impressed. I'm so proud of you. I feel like I just want to hang out and talk to you forever. But thank you for everything you're doing. You're inspiring so many people, and now it's reignited something in me, to want to move forward, make a donation, of course, but also, definitely watch everything and apply it. So hopefully next time we talk, I'll be talking to you about, one of the homes that we're going to be opening. So thank you so much for being here. I know your story is going to impact so many people to act, and thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. And yes, if you could make a, tax deductible donation, you'll get a receipt. You could do it right on the website. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, thank you. Kirsten's story is a reminder that trauma doesn't just affect individuals, it reveals where systems fail. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to learn more about Katie's House Foundation and the Shelter Registry. These resources exist to help families make informed, safer decisions when placing loved ones in shelters and recovery housing, because accountability saves lives. You'll find these links in the show notes to learn more, share the resource, or support the mission. And if you're listening and questioning your own path, remember this: where you come from does not determine where you're going to go.